Hey, so much has happened this week, Manazi. Kaizer Chiefs is back. And there's noise around Kaizer Chiefs. Everything shifts. This past weekend, Kaizer Chiefs played Mamelodi Sundowns at FNB Stadium and unfortunately lost 2-1 to Masandawana. But there was a lot of controversies that were spoken about. There was an offside, an apparent offside, an alleged offside goal. There was a push in the box that people didn't see for the last Goliath Chiefs that was disallowed. And there was so much noise on socials about how Kaizer Chiefs was robbed. And it even became a big deal with both Victor Hlongwane coming out and having to draw lines on Soccer Zone in order to show us this and that. Even Gayton McKenzie, sports minister, came out to say he wants VAR. VAR must come as soon as possible. He's going to schedule meetings with the PSL and Safa as soon as possible. Now, the first part I want to touch on is why don't we have VAR? Let's speak a little bit about VAR, the video assistant ref. So the video assistant ref system is, I believe it was 48 cameras, if I'm not mistaken, at a stadium that capture all angles, and then that is routed to a VAR hub where other referees sit and, pause, slow-mo, replay, zoom in, do all those type of things in order to help the ref for decisions that maybe that aren't as clear. So, for example, VAR would work if a goal is scored, but there was a foul, and VAR would say, no, because there was a foul in the build-up, we're taking that away. When you look at offsides, the big one that everybody speaks about, where they draw the line and they try to determine whether a player is offside or not, is offside or onside, how the player is running, that is essentially the VAR system. We saw it deployed at AFCON. We've seen it in Europe for a very long time. Part of the problem with VAR is that it's very expensive. So, number one, the expenses are very high.
Sorry to interrupt this video, but I need a little bit of your help. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can probably see my subscribe account. And if you can, I'd be very grateful if you would subscribe. That is actually the best way to support this channel, because the bigger that number is, the better it looks to potential guests and other brands and companies that I will approach for sponsorship. It may seem like a very small thing to ask for, but it actually helps with all of this. Thank you very much. Let's get back to the video.
To equip every stadium with that technology means that we'll be spending a reported $3 to $5 million per stadium per year in order to make sure that those technologies are at those stadiums. So if you look at the PSL, I'd say we have around 10 to 15 stadiums that are used in the PSL, but of those stadiums, there's only maybe 10 or so that are stadiums that can be equipped with VAR, that meet the requirements for VAR. So if you remember correctly, there was a conversation about Lucas Moripe Stadium, which apparently didn't meet the requirements for it. That's why CAF games and AFL games were taken to Loftus, for example. So if you think about Bo Kings Welitini Stadium, if you think about Botany Craven Stadium, those stadiums are not up to the required standard for VAR. So that would mean either finding new stadiums or playing games at the same handful of stadiums in order to accommodate this VAR. And those are all pretty pricey options on that side. The other side is FIFA has to sanction it. They have to agree. So FIFA has only two, if I'm not mistaken, two vendors for VAR in the whole world. And you're not allowed to go and do other things. So for example, many people have said, why don't you go to Supersport and ask them, since they already have the tech and the cameras and all of that available at the stadium, would it be that far of a jump in order to take that technology and maybe just add on what FIFA mandates the tech to be, and that would be a lot cheaper. And because DSTV and Supersport are partners with the PSL, that would be an easier place to start. But unfortunately, it's not allowed. Then there's also the training of referees. So all of the referees that will be taking part in the VAR system would have to be trained. All of them would have to undergo training with Jerome Damon at CAF, and that is also costly and timely. So it's not something that you can put in just in J. You can't wake up in the morning and say we want VAR. There's a lot of steps and ticks. There's a lot of tips and requirements that have to be accounted for before you could even get to the point where you start moving forward with VAR. So there's that part. But then in our context, there's also the political part. We all know that Safa and the PSL have a very shaky relationship. Safa and the PSL are meant to be, mother body and parent company and company, with Safa being the head and PSL being an arm of Safa. But how it works currently is that they're almost separate and they're cooperating, not necessarily working together. So the PSL runs as its own body and Safa runs as its own body. And what that means is things like referees also fall into that. So the PSL doesn't provide referees. They get the referees from Safa. Now, because those two are bickering and fighting between each other and don't see eye to eye, what tends to happen is when decisions have to be made that affect both, take, for example, this refereeing conversation, a very simple thing to get out of it would be, listen, who's going to pay for this? PSL, we don't run the referees. Why would we pay for VAR and their training and all of those things when we are essentially borrowing them, renting them from Safa? And Safa will look at the PSL and say, why should we pay for all of that when you guys have commercial partners and commercial sponsorship and could probably afford this whole thing? We are cash strapped, we struggle with the money, hey, we know the different things that happen behind the scenes. So that is part of the reason why we don't have VAR. But the thing I want to speak about is maybe a logical step, a logical discussion. So everybody that we see on social media, that I've had discussions with, that we've seen, speaks about brown bags. Brown paper bags, allegedly refs being given brown paper bags. They speak about the refs taking bribes, allegedly. Some people have gone as far as to say that it's a norm in South African football. So if we're going to use that logic, let's use that logic. Why would I want VAR to come into the league? If I'm a team that knows that, hey, when push comes to shove, I'm facing relegation, I'm trying to get top 8, I'm trying to snap a losing streak, I'm trying to put my team into a better position. I'm trying to do those things. And I know that it's a brown bag away. Why would I want VAR to be implemented in that league? If you look at the referees, right? If VAR is going to take away my ability to get brown paper bags, it's going to cause a lot of friction when people are watching live, my mistakes. It's going to do all of those things. Why would I want VAR to be implemented? And this is now not something that I believe, but I want us to go down that logic hole. Why would you bring VAR in then? Because it seems it will inconvenience more people than it will help from their side. Yes, us as fans will be saying, hey guys, look at this, this was right, that was wrong, all of those type of things. But at the end of the day, if the governing bodies don't want to get it in, and it stands to hurt them, what incentive do they have to move it along? What incentive do they have to come and bring this thing here? I don't think VAR is that much of a difficult thing to bring in. In SA, maybe in other African countries, it's a little bit harder. Then I want to speak about the effectiveness of VAR. Guys, we all watch the English Premiership, and we all see PG Mole, the refereeing company, we all see them come out and apologize to teams. No, this thing was wrong, and that choice, that decision was the wrong one, and we apologize to Arsenal. It wasn't this. They rescind red cards. They take back yellow cards. They take back suspensions. They do all type of things in retrospect. How effective is VAR then going to be? Because all of those things that are being done can be done post-matches. If a ref makes a mistake, there's no game that's going to start over. There's no goal that's going to be given. There's no, there's nothing you can do once the decision has been made. So what type of help is VAR going to make? And if we're also complaining about the refs and people are questioning their competency and how good they are and can you ref and do you know the laws and do you know this and do you know that? When we look at that, then those are the same guys that are going to be sitting in the VAR booth. I think all of us have heard audio that comes from England where the ref said, no, I'm not changing this decision. We've all heard audio of VAR saying, hey, it's a tight one, Nati, we don't know. We've all seen that VAR, in its most basic form, can't account that much for the offsides, for example. We've seen those lines that are drawn and then they draw a line up and they try to justify this one is offside because of 1, 2, and 3, 4. We see that every day for soccer zone. What difference would that be? What difference would that make in the league? And if you want to then go to the more advanced ones where you bring in goal line technology, where you bring in things like the offsides being an automated thing where they can do a 3D mapping and draw a line and tell you his nose was over or his forehead, those are even more costs on top of that. In fact, we saw at AFCON, some of the refs were just like, I refuse. I'm not going there. We've seen in the CAF Champions League where Yanga was complaining about a ball that they believed bounced inside before bouncing out, that they were cheated. There was no conclusive evidence that could come from the VAR. There was none. There was no angle. They didn't have the right angle. They didn't have the tech for goal line technology. They didn't have all those things. So, what is VAR going to give us? If it's that in the moment you get to know that it's right or wrong, fine. The ref has made a mistake. How different is it to waiting for Monday when Victor Hlongwane breaks it down or Ace Ngobo breaks it down on Supersport? How different is it to that? Because there's no recourse. And if it is really a situation where red cards must be taken back and all of that stuff, there's a match report that's done after every game. The refereeing body, the head of referees, the Safa referees body, already does those things. We've heard about, we've seen refs getting suspended. We've seen refs getting kicked out. We've seen cards rescinded. So what difference really would VAR make? If the personnel is not changing, if the decision is not changing, if your team is still going to lose at the end of the day, why are we in such a rush to try get it?